Welcome back to my channel, guys. So today I am sharing 5 mistakes that I made early in my 20s. Yeah, 5 money mistakes that I made early in my 20s. And I'm sharing these because I get the feeling that you guys think I've always had it, always had it together. And that is not the case. I know when I did the 70-20-10 rule, I was like, oh my gosh, I had already been tithing from when I was little. I'd already been saving from my pastor's sermon, sonje, a lot of things. It seems like I've always been doing them. But there are so many financial mistakes that I actually did make in my 20s. As much as I made some right decisions, some decisions were bad. So I'm going to share some of the bad decisions that I made early in my 20s. Yeah, early in my 20s, because I'm still in my 20s, y'all, okay? Yeah, it's the last year, but I'm still in my 20s, okay? I'm young. So financial mistake number 1 was buying a car that was within my means instead of below my means. So a lot of you know, but I started to be a chartered accountant, and if you want to know my chartered accountancy journey, do check out my chartered accountancy journey video, which is also on my channel. So what I did do was didn't go the traditional audit route. I went the financial services route, or I basically worked for a bank. So what happens is the banks basically usually pay more than what audit firms will pay you when you're doing your training. So what I did was I bought a car that I wasn't gonna be able to afford had I been in audit, typically wouldn't have bought if I was in audit. And that was because I was like, oh, more money, bigger budgets for my car. So in hindsight now, I'm just thinking, no man, obviously if I'd bought a cheaper car, I would have had more disposable income to do other things. And guys, just being older and more grown, I've realized the value of money, because sometimes you think it's just so that you can save more, but it's also just so you can give more and help out people more, whether it's your family, your friends, or anyone else who needs assistance, giving to charity. There's just so much more that you can do with your money. But if it's all tied up in payments, you can't do the things that you want to do with your money. Mistake number 2, this is also in line with a car. Hey guys, it's motor. So mistake number 2 was actually allowing the bank to defer my first payment on my car. Basically, I got the car beginning of March, and I think they first debited my account in May or April. So I think I had like 2 or 3 months where I was just like driving this car and there's no payments going off. Just like, oh, must be nice. So when they gave me that option, I was fine with it. And guys, to let you know, I started working in February. Got this car beginning of March already. Like, can you just see how quick everything was? So maybe mistake number 2 is deferring that payment. But I also think another mistake that I'm just going to add now with regards to the car is actually buying a car early. I don't know, guys, there was not much Uber back in my days when I started being a trainee accountant. So, but I remember that I could use the Patco bus and I could use the Metro bus to get from where I needed to be. And I was always at the office, whether it's the Santon one or the CBD, Johannesburg CBD office, but I could always get around. But there was just that thing of, no man, no. Surely guys, now I'm working, I can't be taking taxis or taking buses all the time. So sometimes it's also just giving into lifestyle inflation. I should not have done that. And guys, I remember, I'm sidetracking a bit, but I'll still continue with my points. I remember this one day, guys, I got onto the Patco bus. It was so packed, like I was literally standing by the pole, just by the door, by the driver, like slowly, and it was raining, it was pouring. So obviously I'm waiting in the rain to get into the bus. By the time I do get in, it's so packed that I'm like, we can barely close the door. We're just holding onto that pole. And then every now and again, some people will like file out of the bus. Then I'd go in like closer and closer inside. And I remember regretting going further in because it was so stuffy inside, guys. And guys, what is it with black people and closing windows? We just don't like closing windows. We just like closing windows, I mean. Like, angazi fresh air, ngazi guys, fresh air is life. Anyway, it was so stuffy, all the windows were closed because obviously it was raining. And now I'm standing there, I'm just like, oh, I can't breathe. And then every now and again, there would be a drop of, I don't know, I think it was our sweat or our breath or... guys, if you're familiar with evaporation and condensation, that's what was happening. I think we were all just breathing in too much air, and then it would just chill there on the bus inner roof, and then every now and again it would just like drop on you. So that was like so disgusting. I'll never just forget that day, and it was just annoying. Then obviously I got off the bus, continued with my umbrella. And everyone's like, how, why are you wet? Did you park far? It's like, no guys, I park far away. I'm still like walking, you know, using public transport. So that was just some of the things that obviously made me feel the pressure to get a car, but it wasn't like bad pressure because obviously I could afford one. But I think they accelerated it and I ended up not making good decisions. And where I was working, guys, in Santon, you know, like you go, you check the car park and it's just Beamers and Mercs, guys. Bankers have money, but it's Beamers and Mercs and all these other fancy cars, Maseratis that I didn't even know of. That's what was full there in our car park. And me now, I'm like, oh no, I took the Patco bus. So I felt the need, but actually I should not have felt the pressure. I should have just been like, stay on your own lane and buy a car when you feel like it. Anyway, I did the typical thing. I gave in, I bought a car because I could. So that was mistake number 2. So 1, buying a car that's within my means. 2, it's actually deferring the payments, because what happens is when you defer the payment, obviously the interest builds up on the full amount and you haven't even paid down anything. So they're just capitalizing interest on the full balance of your loan. So those are my mistakes. Mistake number 3 was putting all my savings in a 32-day savings account, guys. There's actually a video I did where I discussed the 5 different types of bank accounts that you can have. So I didn't know any better, guys. I actually do this video so that if anyone is in the same position that I was now, they can have access to this information, because I didn't in my time. So I opened a 32 days account for savings purposes, and obviously that's because I used to just hear my mom saying, my 32 days, or 32 days while I'm here. So I just thought, okay, if you are saving, you always put your money in a 32-day notice account. But that just meant that I could never spend my savings. Obviously, it meant they were growing, which is good, but it was bad because it meant if I really had an emergency, I didn't have anything to fall back on. I was just on some, I can't access my money. And when I actually did have an emergency that needed me to access that money right away, I had to like pay penalties of almost like 1,000 rand, over 1,000, because you shouldn't take that money out within that unless you give them that proper 32 days notice. So yes, take the right bank account. Don't just think all savings have to go to a specific type of savings account. Yeah, guys, you don't want to pay hefty fees just to get your money out. Mistake number 4. This is actually like a really big one. Okay, this one was a mistake, but at the time it really felt like the right thing to do. Mistake number 4 was telling my parents how much I earned when I started working. So it was really a good thing. It was super emotional. My parents and I are very close. So when I got my first paycheck on the date, I was like, guys, did I send them a screenshot of the SMS to my parents? My parents were like, oh girl, we're so proud of you, we're so happy for you. They prayed for me over the phone. We like thanked God. It was like a really big deal for us, for the family. So obviously I was grateful. Hey, but as time goes on, obviously I had expenses, I had things to do with the money, but now they like knew how much money I make. And guys, it somehow just builds expectation. Okay, I don't want to talk too much, but when people know how much you earn, sometimes it just builds that expectation of, you know, like maybe you can give us more than what you're giving, or you can give us something. Whereas sometimes our families don't know the cost of living, especially like I'm based in Johannesburg and my parents are in another province, so they don't know the cost of living where I stay. It's very different to how it is where they are. So sometimes it would seem like, yo, you make so much money, whereas maybe I can afford just to make it by based on the living standard of where I'm at. So sometimes you must just be aware of, do you really want to share your salary or not? But that was the first and last time. Every increase, decrease, bonus after that, I've never mentioned the amount. I will just say, oh, I have a bonus, I'm grateful. Okay, unless it's like small, then I'll say guys. Okay, but basically people keep these things for themselves for a reason. I've learned that. But it's also really good to share with your family, because from that time on, then my mom could actually share her salary with me as well, and we could discuss money. and it just built a much better relationship between my mom and I in terms of finances in that way. So it wasn't all bad, and even now I can do her taxes and help her out in that sense. Whereas before, as much as I had the knowledge, there's always that thing of parents don't want to share with us how much they earn and their business. But my mom has since been open to me because I also started being open to her. So it had its advantages and disadvantages, but I'm just saying, be cautious about telling people how much money you're making, especially people who aren't in the same city as you and who aren't exposed to the same lifestyle as you. Mistake number 5 was increasing the limit on my credit card. Guys, I've had a credit card since I started working. So I remember congratulating myself for not taking that. There's this other bank that specifically targets students who are just from their honors into first year of training, and they'll give you an overdraft. I was so proud of myself that I didn't take that overdraft or bank with that bank. I was just like, yes, I'm good. I'm just gonna work with what I have. And then I had a credit card. And basically it might as well have been me taking the overdraft, because you basically use it in the same way. If ever you've run out of money, you've got your credit card to run back into. But my mistake number 5 is actually increasing the limit, because for the longest of time my limit wasn't a lot. It was 1,000 rands, and it was just enough to pay toll gates if I'm driving home, because I don't know if you've driven from KZN to Durban, but there's like, from Durban to Joburg, there's so many toll gates along the route, and you can't use your debit card. You have to use a credit card or cash. So I'm always like, okay, credit card, it will help me for that. That's what it was for. And the maximum I had was 1,000 rands. So that's what it was. And what I actually really made sure I did was I topped up that credit card so that I was always using my money instead of the 1,000 rand that's a loan. But at some point they called me, ma'am, you qualified to increase. And I was like, no. And then some other time they called me again, you qualified to increase. And I was like, okay, fine. And I didn't take the full increase amount. I lowered it down a bit, but it was still significantly higher than before. So now I find that because of that limit being increased, I was just spending more. So if ever I'm running out of money on my debit card, then I know I still have the amount on my credit card. Then on payday, I paid my credit card in full. But basically it makes me realize that I'm no longer living on my full amount that I've set for myself based on my budget, but I'm living on the amount of my budget and the credit card, and then it's just this revolving cycle of me having to pay back my credit card. So yeah, guys, credit cards are dangerous. Don't increase the limit if you really feel like you have to have one. Maybe top it up with your money so that you're using your money and not the bank's money. So those are the financial mistakes or money mistakes that I've made early in my 20s. Let me know what your mistakes are, and maybe it will help someone else out. Cheers, guys, and I will see you next time. Bye. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and basically grow the Mom and Go family. Cheers.